that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello, and welcome everyone back to the Malazan universe. Today, I have for you Book 2 to the Path to Ascendancy prequel series by Ian C Esslemonts, Deadhouse Landing. Again, I really enjoyed this. I don't know if you can tell. Brendan has made fun of me in the past. Brendan is my friend on YouTube. You might have seen his videos. He's Glenn Voss, doesn't matter. Point being, whenever I like a book a lot, I always kind of move my hands a lot more, and I'm kind of more energetic. Now, a lot of people that I've talked to prefer Dancer's Lament, and that's completely valid. Dancer's Lament is amazing, and it mostly focuses on Dancer and Wu. And of course, we have some other characters in there who are all really interesting, but the focus is on those two, and it's a very tight, concise story. However, as this is a prequel series, this book has offered me a lot more into characters that are legendary by the time of the Book of the Fallen, you know, from, Dasamultor to Shirley, to Tesharin, Tattersail, Nightchill, all these people who play major roles in this. They're all here, and it's going to continue to be the way as we move on to book 3 and 4, and then books 5 and 6 at this point in time have not come out yet, but still, this is all stuff that I'm very much looking forward to. And it's again, Ian C Esslemonts continues to make these books so much fun. Ian C Esslemonts has made another pretty concise story. I mean, there's more characters, so there's a bit more going on, but it still never feels as broad, I suppose, as the Book of the Fallen does, or even novels of the Malazan Empire. This feels a lot more concise and contained, though of course it's a bit broader than Dancer's Lament, just because of the more POVs we have in this particular book. But again, overall, fantastic. I mean, listen, novels in the Malazan Empire had already changed my mind on Tesharin, and then they continued to add nuance and complexity to this character with this book, so that was really cool. Kelevend, as Wu changes his name to in this book, and Dancer continue to be just loads and loads of fun in this book. They truly are one of the best duos in all fiction. To the stuff we get with Dasamultor, to the stuff, we get, which isn't much, it's a bit more subtle, but the stuff we get with Shirley is also fantastic. Tattersail, I mean, just think about it on a reread, if I were to do it in chronological order, I would get extra time with Tattersail before everything goes down, so I think that's really cool. And overall, I mean, the plot of this, Kelevend, I'll say, because he changed his name in this, which is funny, because there's no real significant meaning behind it. Dancer, there's a very clear reason why he started calling himself that, which was really cool to read about. Whereas with this, it was a bit more of, it sounds cool, don't it? Which is really funny to me. But in the last book, Kelevend and Dancer, they got kicked out of Lahang, so now here they are on Malaz City Island, or whatever the fudge, and now they're trying to gather power there. Meanwhile, they hire these people who are of royalty, of the Napan people, which I believe are the blue people, with, I know, it's the blue people, like Thrawn from Star Wars, and Shirley, there's a bit more to Shirley than meets the eye without spoilers. I mean, you already know a lot about Shirley, clearly, by this point, for reading this prequel, but there's some stuff I didn't know. Or if they mentioned it somewhere else, I didn't remember. Because I have a bad memory. But, so that was cool. And seeing their dynamic is just really interesting. And it really is the case that Kelvin and Dancer just kind of go off and do whatever. And leave everyone else to pick up the pieces. And Dancer's the only thing that kind of keeps Kelevend in control. In terms of, Kelevend, his mind is set on bigger, greater things. And does not want to focus on the minutiae of today and what's going on. And so it's up to Dancer to kind of make him keep true to his promises. And it's kind of like, religion, where people just kind of have to have faith that Kelvin will fall through because he's never very clear and precise about what he's doing. He just says, yeah, trust me, bro. But he at least always delivers, and I think that's mostly in part due to Dancer himself. We get more with Shadow here. I'm super intrigued with this realm of Shadow. And we already know a lot about it from Book of the Fallen, but there's also some interesting things here, like with Edgewalker and Dancer. And Edgewalker's been, I guess, sort of the Shadow Throne all this time until he purposely steps away for Caliban. What does Edgewalker know? Will we ever learn? We might not. I don't know. But, at this point in time, they do garner some power by the end of the book. And I assume by the end of Caliban's Reach, we will have the Malazan Empire as we know it. So that will be exciting to read about, but that is the next book. As for this book, as I said, lots of interesting stuff for all the characters that we know of, and I really enjoyed it. But the way you know that this is a lighter tone than the Book of the Fallen, I mean, Dancer at some point, this is a huge spoiler, but he's on Skullcap for a while, in Seven Cities. And guess what? It is not as dark and depressing as it is when Fellison's in there. He doesn't spend a lot of time in there, actually, but, just a different tone. And I like that about a shared universe. It's the same thing sort of with, like, the expanded universe. You can go from a really serious story, like New Jedi Order, to a pretty silly story, like Jedi Academy. I mean, it's serious, but it's a lot more lighthearted. Or stuff like Jedi Prince existing within the same universe. There's you can do different genres, different feels within the same world and still make it feel like it belongs there, I definitely... Novels of the Malazan Empire felt like it was a bit more in tone with the Book of the Fallen, but always felt a bit lighter. This is very much like a fun romp through this series. I mean, sometimes, dark stuff happens, but it's never the focus like it is in the Book of the Fallen. So, it's a nice change of pace. It's a nice change of tone. And it just continues to be a joyous ride. So while I understand a lot of people might say Dancer's Lament is their favorite, so far Deadhouse Landing has my heart. But I love them all, and I definitely think this is the best that Ian C Esslemonts has ever done. And I'm really excited to see the rest of these books. But yeah, that's pretty much it for non-spoilers. I recommend it wholeheartedly. If you don't want spoilers, it is time for you to kick the bucket and leave. Alrighty? I wrote down Dariel, capital of the Napan Isles, the blue people. We meet Cartharin Crust. We also meet Princess Shurith, who will be Shirley later. We meet a character named Nadurian. Wu tells Dancer that Malaz City is a better starting point for their plans. We meet Orko, who, if you remember, is pretty big in I believe, the Crimson Guard, so cool to see him again. We meet characters named Viv and Sail. Sail, which is short for Tattersail. Rashan Akul, which is the Warren of Dark. Also, who do we meet here as a young lad but Dujek, who's most certainly not one arm at this point in time. So that's pretty cool. While Dancer and Wu are exploring the darkness, the shadow, we learn about Zethel. I don't know if we've heard about this before. Maybe it's just like a different... I don't know if it's like a different rearrangement of words. I don't know. But it says the Zethel, which are enemies of the Tisti Eater. Sorry, the Teist Eater. Also, while they're in this realm of shadow, they are giving... Dancer and Wu are giving... Well, I guess Wu's given his second name, and Dancer's giving his third name. Wu is called Aman Anash, the one who knows everything. In Gardens of the Moon, what do they go by in the very beginning? Ominous. And Dancer is referred to as Koth Tel Ishath, the one who watches and judges. Cotillion? So that's something. And Wu, in one of the funniest scenes in the entire franchise, changes his name to Kelevend, which was just a lot of fun. Just because, basically. Shirley's responsibilities. We've talked about this before. We talked about it in the Crimson Guard. We talked about it in Night of Knives, but it's become very apparent. Shirley, when it comes to the mundane, when it comes to the everyday ruling of a society, of a people, of a group, it is left to Shirley. Because Dancer and Kelevend often leave with little to no explanation as they go to do some epic scheme. Meanwhile, oh, you got an army to fight? You got this to do? Shirley, you take care of it and tell everyone else what to do. She is left to carry the weight of the world. Maybe not right now, they don't have an empire, but she's still given so much responsibility as she practically runs everything while they go galleoning off to do their fun. It's a lot for her. Even here you notice she's not a very good delegator either. She very much likes to do everything herself because she trusts herself. She knows she can get it done, except that she can't get everything done. This is why we delegate. It is impossible for one person to do every job. And so one of Shirley's greatest strengths is being able to lead without these two around, because she was royalty, as we learn in this book. But her weakness is being unable to share that burden. And it may not be a big burden right now, but those traits will be a massive problem down the line. And this is, further reiterated in the Bone Hunters. She has no one to trust, no one to turn to, no one to confide in, because she has made herself so utterly and completely alone. So I just think it's fascinating. Every time Shirley is in an Ian C Esslemonts book, they give me more reasons to understand her perspective and sympathize and empathize with her and show compassion toward her. Let's again be abundantly clear. What she does in Night of Knives is not altruistic. She's had enough, and she decides, I have the right to rule. She usurps the throne. Now, of course, Kelevend and Dancer don't really care. They never really did. But it was still an evil act. Something she did not out of any sense of justice. Kind of out of pettiness. But at the same time, after reading all this, can you really blame her? Wouldn't you? If you put in all the work and your boss would just bail every second that you need them? I don't know, I guess we'll see if this is further contributed to as the series goes on. Also, while in this Shadow Realm, we get to meet back up with Edgewalker, along with Tellarest and Curdle. Both names we should all be familiar with. Also, what a big slap in the nuts. Sorry for the language, but oh my god, Hairlock's back. Now, is this like his father or actually him? I don't know. But the only time we really dealt with Hairlock is when he's a goddamn puppet monster guy. Because he dies, like, within the first chapter of Gardens of the Moon. So here we are, getting to see a younger Hairlock. Will he play a bigger role in the next book? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it is interesting to see a younger, less kind of dickish version of him. We also meet Cowl. Now, while the Dancer and Wu, or Kelevend now, end up on 7 cities. They end up on the Skullcap Mines. Kelevend has put himself into a coma, basically, and there's some spiritual stuff going on in his head that's messing with everything. And by the time he finally awakens, he has changed. I don't really have too much to say about the 7 cities section. I mean, Dancer was kind of stuck in those mines for a bit. eventually Caliban came back and saved them. You know, again, it's not taken as seriously as Book of the Fallen. It works though for Caliban and Dancer because they are a bit more these larger than life figures who are a bit more silly, and I don't want to say slapstick, but they very much have this sort of vibe when you follow them that no matter what's going on, things aren't that serious. You know, like they kind of just have this, you know, like they're so far beyond what's going on in the day to day. I have not really dived into Teshrin that much, but we learned so much about Teshrin here. We get to see a lot of his stuff. He gets falsely accused of committing some crimes with his major organization, and so he gets sent on a false trial to be, you know, I assume murdered, as he seems to assume. However, oh, sorry, it's 6 a.m. in the morning. I apologize. Yeah, so there's a false trial on for him, and of course he's not going to die. We've seen him in the main series, but we'll cut back to Teshrin later. But he's the trial is a sham. It's a falsity. It's all played for show. He thinks about, you know, pleading his case when they offer him the chance, but he realizes there's no point. And it actually, I don't know why today it particularly hit me that, I mean, that's done a lot in fiction, that trope. For some reason, that particularly struck me this time around, without getting into specifics. But I have definitely had an occasion, a very specific occasion in my life, where I was sat down. It wasn't a courtroom. I was sat down, was being talked to, and the other party had very clearly made up their mind. And I thought about a million things I could possibly say in my defense, which all would have been valid and justified. But what would be the point? The other party's mind was already made up, so up and walked out. I wasn't threatened with death or anything like Teshrin was, but that feeling of hopelessness, of utter defeat, there's literally no point. It will matter not. It will just be a waste of my breath and time, so you just stay silent. I understand that completely. Damn it, this book is making me like Teshrin again. Anyway, we'll cut back to him. Now, there's this part, again, Dancer, Caliban are in shadow, and there's fear of this chaos, this nothingness, which is in between realms. There's nothing in there, just a realm of nothing. And so they want to avoid that. And guess who makes a return? He doesn't play a big role in here, but he is around, which makes sense. He's a long-lived guy. He seems a bit more cuckoo here. I'd be interested to see if this series will explain how he kind of regains some semblance of humanity. Not that he's a good guy in Book of the Fallen, but he certainly is a bit more nuanced. Or we could chalk that up to bad writing. But I don't think Ian C Esslemonts a bad writer, so I'm not willing to concede that. So, Esslemont haters, they can go eat some poop or something. I'm just kidding. It's okay if you dislike these books. I'm just playing with you. But why are you watching this review if you don't like these books? Anyway, Calor. Calor is back, which is really cool. I also think I heard on the Facebook page of Steven Erikson that Calor will be in Walk in Shadow, which will be interesting to see how he goes from the Carconis trilogy to these books. So it will be quite intriguing. So Sheer, who's a Segula, fights Dassam for, you know, because the Segula need that place of superiority, or they're not worth being a fighter. And of course, Sheer loses, but she put up a valiant fight. And so, and then she's really put down, but Dassam has a conversation about her, and he explains his backstory. And then they do the dirty tango. And by that, I mean they have sex. But it was really cool, because we learned, like, when Dassam was younger, he fell into this, like, sinkhole. He didn't die. He found this corpse that was talking to him and said, "Oh, you can leave if you can asked me to fight, and he handed him like a hook, or like a hook blade or something. And so he would fight, he would lose, he would fight, he would lose. And apparently 4 months had passed, but for him it didn't feel like it was that long. It felt like a couple hours at most. And so when he finally returns to his village, his whole town thinks that he's a ghost. They think that he's dead because it's been 4 months. They already had a funeral for him. They throw garbage at him. They throw rocks at him. They say, "Get out of here, you demon ghost! Like, be gone!" And so he returns to the corpse and fights it again, and until he sufficiently beats him every time. And that corpse is, of course, Hood, or at least a host of Hood. And so that is when he becomes, this right hand of Hood's will, or whatever. But it was a really interesting backstory, and again, it just adds so much to Dasamultor, who, will go on to play as somebody else, because everybody has to change their name and become something else in the Book of the Fallen, but he does play quite a big role in Book of the Fallen, and does appear in the novels of the Malazan Empire as somebody else, so it's really cool to see some of his origins here. I mean, not only do we get an origin story for just who he is, but we're going to get with all these books, like, how he became so important in the Malazan Empire and the Malazan military. All before the Book of the Fallen even happens, it will make Book of the Fallen so much richer to go on a reread. Putting all that perspective in as you go and read about them in the Book of the Fallen. There's a really cool entrance into the city with Edgewalker, Kelvend and Dancer, so that was really fun. Dasam promises to serve Kelvend and Dancer so long as he gets to put someone into the Deadhouse. Also, Cal is a dick. Continues to be one. Pretty sure he was in Return of the Crimson Guard as well. Anyway, he fights Dancer, and of course loses. And then we have Calor versus Agoila. It wasn't very long, but it was interesting. Then we have Kelavad. As we head back to Teshrin, he helps Teshrin escape and survive so long as he promises to serve him, which Teshrin promises to do so. Also, Fisher, like the Fisher from Book of the Fallen, or is this like a father or a grandfather? Like, what do you, Fisher? Explain. I don't know if it's meant to be the same one. It might be an ancestor, but still, it was cool. And by the end of it, they're getting ready with an army to go attack this place, and Kelved is like, "Hey, Dancer, this orb stuff. You ready to go find the Talana Mass?" They don't say that, but an undead army. That's a myth. No, it's not. Want to go find it? So again, another adventure set in stone for Kelvin's reach, while his main forces go to attack an entirely different political environment. So again, a thing where Shirley's going to be, I assume, primarily in charge of that. I also haven't talked about a character named Lee very much, but by the end of the book, she changes her name to Opal, who is a big character in the novels of the Malazan Empire. So there's also that. But that is pretty much it for Deadhouse Landing. I had so much fun with it, you guys. Like I said, Book of the Fallen is a masterpiece. It has touched my soul in a way that nothing else except the Bible has. It is quite an achievement by Stephen Erickson and Ian C Esslemonts. But there are certainly aspects, those books are long, there are aspects of those books where I'm having so much fun, but there's so much despair and sadness, but also hope amidst all of that. But it's so serious, and you must have all your focus and all your heart and all your soul just completely and utterly focused on that story to completely entrench yourself in it and to fully appreciate it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that with this book either, but it's a lot easier to kind of just throw yourself into the thick of it and appreciate the journey, because it's just so much fun. But up next, we'll talk about Kelvin's Reach, the final book in terms of the rise of the Empire, of course. And then books 4 to 6 will be, well, what happens once that empire is established. and I'm certainly looking forward to that. Of course, at the time of this recording, we only have Forge the High Mage out, which came out in 2024, at least in the US. So when the next two would drop, I have no idea, but be rest assured, the moment it does, I'm dropping everything to read them. So, same thing with any Erickson work. So, until next time, guys. Well, what can I say? Caliban may not always be up front, but you should probably side with him, as he's usually the winning side. Till next time.